Okay, so I have been in an ongoing feud with my brother-in-law over how perfect or imperfect Model 3s and just Teslas in general are. And so I decided to make this video to explain to all the Tesla fanboys that while Tesla clearly makes a fantastic product, and I don't use that word lightly, by the way, fantastic is really it. I mean, the likelihood of a startup being able to work in this industry with all the complexities and regulations and international problems is absolutely astonishing that they are able to produce such a good quality vehicle with such innovation in it. That being said, it is far from perfect. There are lots and lots and lots of deficiencies, and that's probably the right word, deficiencies. So, and there are lots of places where other manufacturers beat Tesla on various items. I've broken this into several different categories. The first category is just what's missing on a Tesla. So on the standard plus model of the Tesla Model 3, which is the second from the bottom level, what's missing is a phone charger. You have to buy that separately. And you think, okay, well, that's a bit weird, but fine, right? Okay. How about floor mats? Doesn't come with floor mats. Really? You want $50,000 for a car and you're not going to ship floor mats? Okay, I could live with that, I guess. Heated rear seats. Okay, again, pretty minor, pretty nitpicky. I'll give you that. And while, take note, by the way, that all of the vehicles have heated rear seats, you have to pay an extra $400 to get them turned on. Which, by the way, I'm not complaining about as far as the design goes. I think it's a brilliant idea to build these things in to keep production costs down and sell it later when people decide they want it. However, I think $400 to turn on the heated seats in the back that are already there is a bit steep. You can't buy a Kia. You can't buy most cars these days without, well, most is exaggerating. There's lots of cars at the low level that have heated rear seats built in. There are no vented or cooled front seats at any level. I personally don't like vented or cooled front seats. My wife, however, can't live without them. She loves them. Okay, now is where we get into some real weirdness. No AM. And you think, AM's garbage. I don't want AM. Okay, understood. Except, for me, I have a couple of talk radio stations I listen to on AM, and you just can't get them. Which is super weird because you know the car is capable of it. Apparently, they removed it from the Model S's, so the receiver's there. They just didn't want to put it in. No Wi-Fi, so yes, it has a connection, a cellular connection, so it goes out to the cloud and it will do its downloads through that if you don't connect it to your own Wi-Fi, but my daughter, for instance, doesn't have much of a data plan, and so she prefers to use the data plan on my GM vehicles. And, you know, Ford's got this all of the, pretty much everybody has this. So you can turn your car into a hotspot. Yeah, not in a Tesla. Can't do it. Weird. Again, crisis? No, it's just fine, but weird. Now, here's another super, super weird one. No Android Auto or Apple CarPlay. How is that possible? And the answer is because Tesla wants you to use their systems. And by the way, their systems are pretty good. But it ain't no Android Auto and it ain't no CarPlay. So it's just not as good as Android Auto in particular. Now, let's see here. What else is missing? There's no heads-up display, even as an option. And you think, heads-up display, what's that? Well, that's just a little display, a little projector that projects onto the windscreen, onto the, the front windshield, what core items are. So things like your speed, road signs, and we'll get to road signs in a minute. Things like that, and it puts them up just below the driver's line of sight. It's a really handy feature. It's really cool. It doesn't cost squat for them to put in. Little Pico projector probably costs somewhere in the area of $50-$60 to put in. That may be a slight exaggeration, but I doubt it. At any rate, so it's not there. My wife's 2019 Mazda CX-5 has it. We've had it on a number of vehicles, and it is great. Google Maps, and you think, no, it's got Google Maps. I read it. It's got Google Maps. Well, sort of. It has base Google Maps. In other words, what they've done is they've licensed the maps from Google, but they haven't licensed the searching capability, for instance. So, you know, on a Google map, you can search for something and say, it's really not in the area I want. You can slide the map over, and then there's a button that says search this area. Yeah, that's not there. You can't do it. Also, the voice commands on the Teslas are really weak. So you can't say something like, call, the local Tim Hortons. You can't say, call the nearest General Motors dealer. You can't do any of that. It just won't work. Where I can on my phone. And if it had Android Auto, I could do it. Now, as far as problems go, just flat out problems, there's a couple of things. This is a different category. The biggest problem is road noise. So here we are driving just north of Calgary, and I'm not sure how well you can hear me, but the audio is probably a little bit drummed out because the car is picking up about 80 decibels. I'll put a meter up here so you can see it. And there's wind noise through some of the windows as well, which isn't terrible, but it's not great. The point of this isn't that it's not acceptable, it's that it's quite loud. And certainly far louder than my Cadillac, and even my Ford before that, my electric Ford and my electric Cadillac. You probably can't hear this because my phone has very good sound cancellation, but this thing is loud. I've got wind noise coming through the doors because they don't seal 100%. They're good, but they're not far from perfect. Nowhere near as good as my other vehicles. But the road noise is quite loud, and that's because they use cheap glass on the doors and single pane glass. I've driven S's, X's, and my own Model 3. I have not driven the Y, although I expect the Y is exactly the same as the 3, given that it's pretty much the same vehicle, just a little larger. The road noise in these is very loud. I have been driving, luxury vehicles for years, and they use multi-pane glass, and you think, lamb glass, which is 2 or 3 pieces of glass laminated together, and that really keeps the road noise down. Tesla uses cheap single pane glass on the sides in particular, and as a result, even the support people I've talked to have said, yes, we know about it, it's noisy, not much we can do, it's what it is. Fair enough. Again, is this a crisis? No, it's still a wonderful car. But man, it's annoying. When you're expecting an electric car to sound like an electric car, yeah, it doesn't. It's loud. When you're driving on anything other than, actually even on perfect roads, it's loud. You'll seldom get it below 60 decibels. Driving in Canada, you'll get it on, because they put a gravel and tar surface down so that in the winter on paved roads, it's a little more grippy. Another problem, the pillars are quite large. That is, again, far from a real crisis. It's just a problem that you'd learn to live with. And I think the reason they've done this is to keep the structural integrity because they've chosen to go to a glass roof, which, by the way, is a lovely feature, although it gets me to a point of what's missing. There is no sunroof. Now, I hate sunroofs. All I want to do is close them. I don't really know why people like them, but my wife loves sunroofs. Literally will not buy a car without a sunroof. The rear view mirror is also very, very small. Hard to see back. So the viewing angles around the vehicle are not very great, not very good. Now here's one that's going to drive Tesla fanboys crazy. But when you put it on self-steer, auto-steer, you would expect that it will, keep, do your lane keeping and do the adaptive cruise thing, which, by the way, I had adaptive cruise on a 2012 Dodge Durango. It's hardly a new feature. Moving past that, though, back to the problem. You would expect that because it's all camera-based, in particular, that it would avoid potholes, especially big potholes, but more importantly, obstacles. So I was driving my Tesla Model 3 yesterday, and I had it on autopilot, the self-drive. It was going along, and in front of me appeared a mud flap from a very large truck. And you think, well, a mud flap's pretty small, dude, and it's flat, so just drive over it. Yeah, okay, what wasn't small was the attachment that it had to the truck that had come off. So it had a metal rail at one end, and I had to swerve to avoid that thing. I had to take control of the car very quickly, which of course I was doing, so fair enough. But it didn't do it for me, and it never does. It does not avoid potholes. Boom. Right through the potholes. Look at these. Boom, boom. Apparently Elon said in February that they're working on that and they'll get it, and I'm sure they will eventually. The question is, are they going to include that in the base autopilot, or are you going to have the FSD, the full self-drive? Here's one I'm going to demonstrate, which is the music info. So when you've got your music, your screen up showing what music is on, most stations put out push a single line of metadata. Metadata is just data about data. So in other words, the name of the station, the name of the song, the name of their album it came from, whatever they want. In a Tesla, instead of having it scroll, or instead of having it clickable, so you can click on it on this big 17-inch screen and have it come up, the details, instead of that, you've got about 25 characters. So you'll see here that, in fact, often I have no idea what's playing and I can't see it. I can't bring it up, which is super annoying. Certainly a little thing, but annoying all the same. Now, back to driving in the center of the lane with the autopilot. So what it does is it picks the dead center. It estimates where the right and left lines are, and it estimates the center of that. The problem is, well, there's two problems with that. One, it often gets it right, which means that you're driving in the groove and you think, well, what's the problem with that? Well, I'm going to show you the problem with that. First of all, I never drive in the groove. I always drive slightly to the left. If nothing else, it helps the road wear out less. Secondly, I avoid a lot of potholes by doing that. And thirdly, when it rains, which is what I'm going to show you here, it's a heck of a lot safer because I'm not driving in the trench where the water is, so I can avoid hydroplaning.
And this is why you don't want to drive directly in the center of a lane. Because if you do, you'll be driving where everybody else drives, and that is going to get you in a one heck of a hydroplaning situation. You need to drive out of the grooves a bit, but the Tesla won't do it. The Tesla will only drive dead center of the lane. It should instead hug the left a little bit, at least in my opinion.
Another problem, though, is if you have, we'll say, a section of the road where it gets particularly wide for some reason. You know, a ramp used to be there, or a ramp is there for that matter, and the dotted line to your right ends, the vehicle can lurch to the right to get into the dead center, which is unnerving and unnecessary.
So there's an area it just doesn't know what to do at all, where there's no lines. It just tries to split the difference and put you in the middle.
The vehicle should have a preference to hug the left, and it should be off by a few inches so that it's not driving in the groove. It's avoiding a lot of obstacles and water and whatever else, but it doesn't. It wants to drive dead center. Will they fix that in the future? Don't know. Probably, but don't know. Okay, what's next? Signage. So you would think that a vehicle that's this advanced would recognize signs, road signs. So speed limit changes, stop signs, so on and so forth. My wife's 2019 Mazda does. Several other vehicles I've owned do. They just use the camera and they read the sign and go, oh, it's 60 kilometers an hour now. Oh, there you go. Oh, that's cool. Oh, it's a stoplight. Oh, there you go. And at very least, they put it up on the little screen. And my wife's Mazda CX-5, it does a wonderful job. It actually puts it up in the heads-up display and tells you, oh, the speed limit's changing to this. And then it will slow your vehicle down, and wonderful. The Tesla Model 3 will not do that without the full self-drive. And that feature, by the way, only came out for full self-drive in beta last week. So if you've spent in Canada the $11,600 for full self-drive, and you're on the advanced software, you will now apparently get stop signs, speed limit changes, so on and so forth, read from the cameras. Pretty weird, because I thought it had always done it. I think what they should do is make it available to slow the vehicle down. I understand that it's not going to speed the vehicle up, but when you're going from an 80 zone to a 60 zone, or whatever speed limit you choose, as long as it's slowing down, the vehicle should recognize that and slow down appropriately, but it just doesn't. Next stuff. There's a little camera button, and it shows you the rear camera, and you think, okay, that's kind of nice, but who cares? Well, true, but you can't see the front. So if you're trying to park head first, which, by the way, I virtually never do. I'm a back-in guy. But once in a while, I have to pull in, and there's an air dam on the front of this, and you want to make sure you do not scrub it. Now, and you think, well, just look out the window, dude. Your head's about the right height. Not quite. The camera is actually a few inches higher than you, and certainly probably up to a foot higher than where your eyes are in your head. And it will see down much better over the hood than what you will. To the point that one of the really nice features about a Tesla is if you're driving in a Model 3, which is a mid-sized car, it can often see over the car in front of you and detect vehicles in front. So the display will show you, which is nice. So that camera is positioned to do it, it just doesn't. Something that drives me crazy is the charging lock. On the charging, when you go plug it in to charge it up, it does a lock. And maybe in California and other places where Tesla is born, this is an issue where somebody would randomly unplug your charger. I've never had a vehicle, Ford or my Cadillacs, they plug in. I've never had them locked. They don't even offer it. That's probably a mistake. They probably should offer it. But to have it lock by default and to have you not be able to turn that lock off is quite annoying. Now, the defense of that is, well, you just open your door. If that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to open the driver's door, and then the charge lock will come off and you can just unplug. Well, in my case, that doesn't work probably 80% of the time. I have to reach into the vehicle and I have to press the unlock button on the inside. Now, if I'm on a Tesla charger, a supercharger or something, there's a button I can press that and withdraw it. But it's still just a pain. I don't want to do that. I want it to just plug in like all of the other electric vehicles and be done. But it won't do that. Here's something that for people that are used to electric vehicles will drive you absolutely bat beep crazy. 1 foot driving, 1 pedal driving. Now, Tesla and most Tesla drivers will tell you that 1 pedal driving is the best. And it may be the way of the future, but there's definitely a big issue with it. 1 pedal driving is the notion in which you don't use the brakes. What you do is you take your foot off the gas and the vehicle goes into regen mode right away. So the electric motor spins backwards and starts producing electricity. Wonderful idea, love regen, all over it. However, in the Model 3, for some inexplicable reason, they only have 2 modes, what they call standard and what they call low. So standard is downright dangerous if you're not used to it. You'll get rear-ended using this if you're not careful. So when you take your foot off the gas and you're in standard, it's standard regen, that vehicle will all but lurch. I've had, 15 people drive my Tesla now, and all of them have been really taken aback by this. So I have it set to low. When I realize as a Tesla owner that I'm weird, most people put it on the regular one, and the way they avoid lurching is to just not take your foot off the gas. You sort of ease your foot off the gas. Okay, here's the problem with that. If you're a hypermiler, and I am, I want to coast a lot. You cannot coast in a Tesla. It's not possible. The low regen is like high regen on my Cadillac or my Ford. It is very strong. So they should have a third setting, which is none. And that's what I would like. So I would like to set my 1 pedal driving to none, and then the vehicle will coast. So when I'm coming up to a stop and I can see it's a half a kilometer away, I'll just take my foot off the gas and I'll bet this thing coasts beautifully. I bet it barely slows down. And then I can apply the brakes as I get closer and to the stoplight, and it will come to a halt. And of course, the brakes, when I say the brakes, it's actually not going to use the calipers. What it's actually going to use is the regen. And that's what I would like. That's what I have in my other cars, and it's great. Another mistake in the Tesla is that in sort of traditional Musk fashion, there's a bit of an overpromise here, which is Tesla has given you the maximum spec that battery can do. So for instance, I have a standard Tesla, Standard Plus, I believe it's called, and that is a 402 kilometer battery, according to Tesla. And it's now exactly, almost to the day, 1 year old. And I took it in, and it charges now to 355 kilometers. And you think, well, yeah, it's a year old, it should drop a bit. Okay, but you know what doesn't drop a bit? Other companies. And why don't they drop generally? Well, let's take a look at the Chevy Volt or the Cadillac ELR. This is a quote out of Wikipedia. To ensure the battery pack lasts more than 10 years, it does two things. The Volt team decided to only use about half of the 16 watt capacity of the battery. So what they do is it will only charge to 80% of capacity, and it never charges below 30%. What they've got is they have what they are calling reserve cells. So let's say your battery pack, we'll just make up a number. Say it's 100 kilowatt, right? It's a big battery. So you got a 100 kilowatt battery pack. Let's just, for the sake of argument, say that there's 100 cells in there. By the way, there's an awful lot more than 100. Let's just call it 100 cells. With these other companies, you will find that the number of the cells, let's say 15% of them, are just completely unused. As the cells that are used start to wear out, the software will turn those cells off and turn on the new cells, which means you don't, yes, the battery degrades, but no, you don't see it because it's not overpromised. The battery is supposed to produce 16 kilowatts or 12 kilowatts or 8 kilowatts, whatever number it is, and it will, even though some of the cells are dying and are old. And that's because it's subbing in new ones automatically. It avoids the warranty experience. You know, it's an issue. You can only mute from the driver's wheel. So you think, is that really an issue? Well, it is if you've got kids. No, my kids aren't. My kids drive the cars, so this is not a problem for me. But I've certainly had other people that have driven the car point this out. On the screen, you see at the bottom right-hand corner, there's volume up and down, and you can just press and hold that, and it will change the mute, and it will not mute. Sorry, it will change the volume. But you can't just click on it and have it mute, which means the passenger will, somebody's partner, mom or dad, is in the passenger seat, can't mute it to go bark at the kids. The driver has to click the steering wheel to get it to mute. Is that a problem? Well, no, but it is annoying, I'll tell you that, for others that drive this. Another thing is there's a bunch of little Easter eggs and fun stuff in the vehicle, and you can't turn the volume up or down on that, and you cannot mute those. So, for instance, I was in a lineup for a COVID-19 test, and I turned on something, one of these little Easter eggs that's built into the car, and just then a nurse came up to the window and knocked on the window. So I rolled it down, and I thought, oh, I'll just mute this fun thing. Yeah, you can't. You can, once something started, these little fun things, these Easter eggs, which, by the way, I love them. I wish they'd put more of them in, but I've got to be able to control them a bit. You can't turn the volume up or down, and you can't mute them. So you just have to wait for them to finish. And I looked like a moron with this thing. This was either Jingle Bells or More Cowbell, which you can look those up later if that intrigues you. But yeah, I just looked like a moron talking to this nurse with, I need more cowbell in the background. Well, in the foreground, actually, because it was quite loud. Another strange thing that is very annoying is that you cannot change the order of your favorites. And you think, well, sure you can. You just put them in order. Okay, well, that's a pretty crappy way to do it, because over time radio stations change, and you want to change the way things are listed. So I like to have all of my news, radio in one section, and all of my rock and roll in another, and then I've got a weird section of favorites. And you can't do that in a Tesla. But when you added a favorite, it's in whatever order it's in. And you think, well, that's a problem. Well, it's annoying for a car that's had this roughly this design for a decade, and they still don't have this going. So yeah, it's annoying. Something that I haven't had a problem with, but I have talked to others who have, is you can't force a check for updates. So you would think that you would be able to go into the software section and select check for updates. And at very least, if Tesla wants to manage it, that it would come up and say, no, there is an update, but it's not released to you or your region yet, or something to that effect. But no, there's no way to force a check for updates. So apparently the dodge around that is to go to a Tesla service center, which for an awful lot of people, because there aren't a lot of service centers, is to go to a body shop, a repair shop, and you can hang out near there. And those apparently have some higher priority. So if you just hang out there, you will often get the updates. That's something I read online. I watched a couple of videos on. It seems to work. I'm not saying that that's the case. I'm just saying that's what people have said. Okay, continuing through here, the blinkers. So the indicators left and right are very, very easy to put on permanent left or right. So, you know, the idea is you lift the blinker a little bit, the control arm, and it will flash 3 times and turn off. But it's very, very easy to get it stuck on left or right. And because the clicking noise is so quiet, you often won't notice it. Also, and this is that's minor, really minor, but it is there. What is frustrating is if you turn the wheel, and I don't know what the number is, well, I'm sure Tesla will have some comment on this. When you turn the wheel back, so let's say if your right indicator on, and you make your right-hand turn, and then you straighten the wheel back to center, it very seldom will turn that off unless you've made a very hard left turn. So, you know, but if you're just coming off a ramp or something and you put your indicator on, yeah, it's going to stay on, which is not good. Okay, so here are some oddities that I have. My Tesla, for the first month that I owned it, would only get about 225 kilometers per charge. Now, Tesla support guys couldn't figure out what was wrong online. They monitored me driving for a week or so. Then there was an update to the software, and I also took it in for repair about the same time. The guys in repair said they couldn't find anything wrong with it. So, and now it does seem to be okay. I've only had it for a couple of days, but it does seem to be getting a much better range now. So, but that was the case for a month, and they were not able to resolve what that was. That was super weird. Another oddity that I have personally is the glass roof. Most people love sunroofs. I have no time for them at all. Because Tesla's done such a wonderful job of darkening that, it doesn't really bug me, but I thought it was going to. If you're one of these people that really hates light coming in from the top, it might bother you. Pretty minor, but it is there. I also prefer the wipers to have the passenger side go what most people would define as backwards. So instead of swiping up one way, I expect it to swipe up the other. You get a much larger clearance on it for the rain or for whatever else you want. I don't know why Tesla hasn't gone with that. And in fact, I don't know why most manufacturers don't do that anymore. I read an article from GM about, or maybe it was Mercedes, maybe a decade ago, arguing that there's some mechanical issues with doing that it adds some complexity. I would also prefer a hatchback, which is why I'll probably change this to a Model Y shortly. They don't corner that great either. People think that these are really sporty and they rip, and by the way, they do. They really haul. It's awesome to be driving 110 kilometers an hour and mat it and zip around a guy that's like he's standing still. It's wonderful. But like, Mustangs and muscle cars, the days of yore, they're great. Just don't hit a corner that fast. So, and by the way, yes, this is better than a Mustang in the corners and lots of other cars, but it's far from perfect. It certainly could be stiffer. And as far as the style goes, I had somebody tell me that they thought it looked a bit like the next Toyota Camry. While I disagree with that, I argue that, my phrase is, it ain't no caddy. It ain't no Cadillac. I had a Cadillac, I've had a couple of Cadillac ELRs. Those are beautiful cars. It's like driving art. This is fine. And I understand that Tesla's they have produced a vehicle that is different without being scary, right? So they don't want some nutty looking, future Terminator mobile. That's the Cybertruck, right? And that's for a limited market. But for mass market, they're trying to produce something a little more generic. Well, I think this is just a little too generic. I would like a little more style in it. But, that's me. For God's sakes, if you're looking at an electric vehicle, you really got to go drive the Model 3. The price is great. The car is great. There's just little things that might bother you a bit. All right. If you have any questions or concerns, please get a hold of us at www.urtech.ca and have yourself a great day.